What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you the MMOs that I've loved and lost. Which is to say that the MMOs that I used to play. Now, if you follow the channel quite a bit, I've mentioned this before, but these days I don't really play MMOs. However, I used to play them pretty frequently. That said, this is not a dig about MMOs in general. The reason I don't play them anymore is, frankly, a little more practical. I can either invest time into reviewing video games and growing this channel, or I can play MMOs. And quite frankly, I don't have time to do both, so MMOs tend to lose. That said, I thought it would be fun today to talk about some of the MMOs that I used to play and the reasons I enjoyed them. So, first and foremost, the most obvious one, World of Warcraft. Chances are I'm not going to tell you anything about World of Warcraft you don't already know. It was just a very fun game that I got to play when I was with internet, shall we say, throughout my high school years and then a bit afterwards. But I primarily started playing during Burning Crusade, actually, and I even got to raid Black Temple when that was relevant content, and then I played probably the most, though, during Wrath of the Lich King. And these days, I'll usually drop in and check in on it every once in a while when they do something substantial. If for no other reason, then I'm rather attached to my Draenei Shaman that I have played since Burning Crusade, and I like to see where the story goes, even if I'm not particularly invested in the game. Obviously, there are people that cover it very in depth and talk about every little thing that changes, and truth be told, I'm just not attached enough to it to care that much these days. But nonetheless, it's a game that I used to play a ton, so it made the list. Now, next up, we have Star Wars: The Old Republic. Now, this is, of course, the Star Wars MMO that kind of continued the canon of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Now, what I loved the most about Star Wars was actually the story. So each of, I believe it was the 8 base classes, had their own unique story that you could play through as you leveled up. So your leveling experience was that story, which is why Star Wars, I think, has the best level up experience of just about any MMO I've ever played. In fact, even if you don't like MMOs, I would actually highly recommend, if you're super into Star Wars, playing through all of these stories just for the sake of seeing them. Some of them are really good. The Imperial Agent was probably the standout. My personal favorite was the Sith Inquisitor, but I have actually played through all 8 of them, and they are all very good. Again, probably the best level up experience when it comes to MMOs. However, the game kind of fell off pretty hard when you got to the end game, in my opinion. Not that it's bad compared to any other MMO, to be honest. It's just that there wasn't that much to do and I wasn't committed to playing it that hard. But again, the level up experience was really, really good. And that brings us on to ESO. If you've watched the channel for a very long time, I used to put out some videos for ESO here and there, though I would tell you, don't bother watching them. They're all terrible. That said, it's a game I enjoyed a lot purely because I really like the Elder Scrolls, like a lot of people. But that said, it's a very fun game. I actually enjoy the sort of action-oriented combat for it quite a bit. It's a game that still gets content on a very regular schedule. They release like a big expansion almost every year. And while honestly they're a little hit or miss with their storytelling, I did really enjoy the combat aspect of it. And naturally, anything involving the world of Elder Scrolls always kind of has my attention to some degree. That said, the reason I kind of drifted away from this one is that their releases are kind of very formulaic, which I think is down to the fact that they do yearly releases. A lot of it tends to feel a little samey, in my opinion, so I kind of just drifted away from it after a time. And then fourth on our list, we have Guild Wars 2. So I loved Guild Wars 2 almost entirely for the characters and the playable races. So fantasy races tend to have a lot of overlap, and there's only so many ways you can make the same type of character a lot of the time. But what really stood out to me about Guild Wars 2 was the really cool playable races. Char are hands down one of my favorites. But even beyond that, they also have an action-oriented combat system that kind of varies based on what type of weapon you have equipped, which I was also a pretty big fan of. So, while it's certainly not a game that I kept up with for an incredibly long amount of time, I very much so enjoyed my time with Guild Wars 2, if for no other reason than getting to run around as a Char Revenant, which was really fun. And then last on our list, we have The Secret World Legends. But I did actually play it when it was just known as The Secret World. It later kind of re-released as The Secret World Legends, sort of in a bit of a rebrand the way Final Fantasy XIV worked. But I loved The Secret World Legends purely because of the sort of fantasy over the top of the real world type stuff. So The Secret World kind of takes all your legends and urban myths and stuff and just kind of pushes them into a real world setting, which in my opinion is pretty unique for an MMO. And I really enjoyed this for basically the same reasons that I really enjoyed Vampire the Masquerade, in that it sort of adds an extraordinary element to an ordinary everyday stuff. Combine that with the sort of cloak and dagger approach they take to their lore and the setting, and it was really cool. Now the downside of the Secret World is that gameplay-wise it was a little lacking. It kind of felt like they had just a ton of ambition, but they lacked the either funds or talent to fully see it to fruition. And compared to the other titles on this list, the animations are a little clunky. The combat doesn't feel as good, though the Legends reboot, if you will, did help out a lot with that. It still feels pretty dated, comparatively speaking, but nonetheless, the lore and the ideas behind this one really struck my interest. And it's unfortunate that the gameplay couldn't keep up, because if it had, I think this would have been an amazing game, honestly. But there you guys go, 5 MMOs that I used to play. But alas, I simply don't have the time anymore because I'm busy making videos like this for you guys every single day. So, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.